So in this video, I'm going to reveal a lot of things that many people have tried to keep the public from knowing. And so I encourage you to like, share, subscribe, comment throughout this video, which will be multiple parts on TikTok, Facebook, but you'll be able to see the whole video on my YouTube channel. So I want you to, for those that are new to my content, we're going to start off with establishing our base ground. Delusion, the word delusion. So by definition, it means a false belief or judgment about external reality held despite controvertible evidence to the contrary. So if we want to visualize this, imagine John and Jane are arguing over the existence of paper. John says it exists, Jane says it doesn't. If no one presents any proof, then it's just a difference of opinion. However, if John presents paper to prove that his belief in paper existing is true, whether or not delusion exists would depend upon how Jane reacts to that paper. If Jane looks at the paper and acknowledges that her belief was wrong, then delusion has never existed. However, if she looks at the paper and denies it, rejects it, deflects, anything except acknowledgement of her false belief, then she would, by definition, be exhibiting signs of a delusional thought. So now we're going to establish reality. In June of 2024, I filed a lawsuit with the Eastern District of Oklahoma on behalf of the Cherokee people in Oklahoma and Cherokee people across the country. The lawsuit was for the restoration of rights to our 7 million acres in northeast Oklahoma, to enforce treaty promises from the 1833 treaty and the Treaty of Minnesota. Now this undeniably would have set precedent that would have helped many tribes across the country. But more importantly, it would have recovered $50 billion in compensation for the Cherokee people, which would have been distributed in a manner that all citizens would have been, regardless of their tribal affiliation, whether they were the EBCI, Cherokee Nation, or the UKB, would have received income that would have raised them to a minimum of 300% above the poverty line. Now, this would have given every citizen the ability to buy housing, transportation, put their kids through school, and lifted the entire tribe out of poverty. So automatically we're looking at the biggest high-stakes native rights case in history. Immediately after filing the claim, I filed an amended claim adding Governor Stitt as a second defendant. This was to bypass sovereign immunity, ex parte Young, which as a executive officer of the state of Oklahoma is responsible for the laws and regulations, which makes him a necessary party, which the court would be able to file injunctive relief against. So let's take a look at how the lawsuit went. In September 5th, 2024, the state of Oklahoma filed a 12-page motion to dismiss, playfully termed a kitchen sink motion. Among the many reasons, the defendants used a history of failed attempts in similar lawsuits, failure to state a claim properly on the complaint, which they used the term a defect, laches doctrine, statute of limitations, sovereign immunity, and more importantly, a lack of legal standing. That as a private citizen, not a government official, I lack the standing to pursue the law. Answering a motion with literally every ground they could possibly throw in there for a reason to dismiss would be a daunting challenge for anyone, even an attorney. But it would have been thought impossible for a homeless high school pro se litigant with no formal education, no resources, no support. In the first place, one would expect weeks if they even were able to come up with an adequate response. But when you consider that I also had to work a full-time job as a housekeeper at the Cherokee Nation, then one would think this case is closed. However, this email screenshot proves that by 6:39 a.m. the following morning, on September the 6th, my response had been emailed to the federal court, and it contained a 3-page point-for-point rebuttal that was properly formatted, accurately cited, and decimated the state's motion to dismiss, while also highlighting a false statement made by the defendants when they claimed I lacked legal standing. Because under 1955 U.S. Supreme Court decision, Hitton Indians versus United States, the Supreme Court recognized the rights of individual citizens to pursue and enforce treaty claims without the consent of the tribal governments. So in part one, I showed how the state's first attempt to dismiss was answered effectively by a pro se litigant under seemingly impossible conditions. Under ordinary circumstances, if a pro se litigant were to respond, it wouldn't have been in under 6 hours, and it certainly wouldn't have been with a professional quality rebuttal. So September the 10th, the state filed their reply to my response, and it was very brief, literally only a page. They pointed out that the defect had yet to be resolved, and then challenged my dual enrollment into the Cherokee Nation and the United Kituah Band, also while challenging my claim that unjust civil actions had been taken against me by the state of Oklahoma. So once again, under the same constraints, still working as a housekeeper and still homeless and living out of the back of a truck, working on just a cheap government cell phone. And even though maintaining the hours of 5 p.m. to 1 through the Cherokee Nation would have limited the time I had available to work on the lawsuit, my response, including supporting documentation, was actually on record, as you can see by the email. It was actually sent in more than an hour and a half faster than the first time. Once again, this was a 3-page, accurately cited, professional quality, point-for-point rebuttal, this time resolving the defect, while presenting proof of dual enrollment, as well as proof of unjust civil actions. This left the state's motion to dismiss without a single valid reason. Now, with no valid reasons, and one of them presented being a lie, at this moment in time, I became legitimately the biggest threat to 7 million acres and $50 billion that one individual has become to the state of Oklahoma and to the federal government. So it wouldn't be difficult to imagine that terrible things could happen to an individual that made such a threat. I had to do something to let the courts and all players know that I was not alone in my actions. Now, obviously, to answer filings in such a rapid time wouldn't have been possible without a degree of foreknowledge, and wouldn't have been possible by a pro se homeless litigant. I demonstrate to all parties that I was not acting alone. In the last 2 paragraphs, I discussed a submitted screenshot of a Facebook post from July of 2024, more than 2 months before this incident, which was more than a month before the state had been served a complaint. And in it, I demonstrated that I did know they were going to be filing their false statement. Now, keep in mind, I was in the middle of a legal battle. I didn't know if the opponents were watching my Facebook, so I didn't want to tip them off by citing an exact mistake. My statement was, the state of Oklahoma and governor are about to learn one of the first lessons of being a native. As my dad loved to say, if you don't know, keep your damn mouth shut. Now, one would have to ask, how did I know? And I will tell you. I knew in July, because that was when I was given the Hitton Indians versus United States precedent by God, Creator, our Father. Now, by definition, foretelling the future events by divine wisdom or knowledge is prophecy, which would make me, by definition, a prophet. So which one would I be? Well, let's take a look at the work that God's given me. And since I've already established this lawsuit as a piece of work, then we'll start there. The purpose of this lawsuit is to establish a free and independent nation, to build a system of government for Creator. Many prophecies around the world speak of such a coming time. And so, one of them being the Bible. Revelations speaks of God's holy warrior. It says he will have a sharp sword from his mouth to slay the nations. A sharp sword from his mouth would be words of truth. That would be a fitting metaphor for my actions in federal court in the state of Oklahoma. But even more so, it says that warrior will be marked with a name on his head which only he himself would know. And that would be my Cherokee name above. That would be my Cherokee name above my right eye, which was tattooed on me before I even filed the lawsuit. These not end times, because there's other prophecies which I fit, and all prophecy comes from the Creator, comes from God, but all prophecies say something a little bit different. That's the lies that were embedded in them. Some of them done purposely, some of them just grew in over time. But if you took all the world's prophecies and laid them out on a table, and you extract the pieces that are all in alignment, which would be the truth. Places where they differ, you can dismiss as cultural noise, alterations over time that have just bled their way into them, and intentional deceit. Then you come up with one thing that's going to be obvious. There'll be a messenger from God sent to help this world heal. They'll be speaking words of truth. They'll be carrying ancient wisdom. All things that I've claimed. One of these such prophecies would be Pahana, the Hopi people. Pahana is a lost white brother. I've been mistaken for white most of my life. I was lost for 27 years, as so many people in this world are now. So right there I see an instant connection. Pahana is supposed to be carrying tablets. But keep in mind that prophecy was written during a time when few natives spoke fluent English. So it wouldn't be hard to imagine that tablets they mentioned could have been papers. So when you look at all the writings that I have been given, then one of the most sacred writings would have to be Creator's truth, which could also be known as God's truth. So in the last part, I established that I was a prophet of God, chosen to write His truth. In this part, we're going to examine how free will and God can both exist. And I'm going to provide you proof that the devil has never existed. So in 2024, when I was given the Teton Indians precedent, I was also given Lexington Mill versus United States. And it is a quote used that would have brought an end to the lawsuit in favor of the Cherokee people, and essentially taken away the free will of the judge to choose. I have always lived respecting the free will of others. And so when God gave me this tool to take away the free will of another person, I initially wrote it with that lifelong principle held in place. I used the Lexington Mill in the arguments and authorities to demonstrate to the judge that I had the ability to take away his free will. However, in the closing argument, I requested that it be dismissed out of respect for his free will. But this is not what God wanted. So he had manipulated events in the court, delays here, miscommunications here, He had manipulated things so that I would see a conspiracy where there wasn't one, so that I wouldn't trust the court to do the right thing. And so I would rewrite their brief to do as he wanted. But once I rewrote the brief in a manner that he wanted, the conspiracy that I saw through all the lies. Those lies were, people are not trying to do the right thing, which is exactly what they're trying to do, because no devil ever has existed. But by believing one does, we look for evil in people where it's not at. There's cruelty, yes. There's mistakes, yes. But I have not met an evil person in 5 years. Because evil, to me, would be someone intentionally harming others. And although I see a lot of harm going on, I don't see anyone doing it intentionally. I see a lot of people assuming intentions in others without ever asking. So if you want to know what's wrong with the world, just imagine a world where everyone is living in a lie, living in delusions, disconnected from God, disconnected from their heart, because they're living in their mind, they're living in a lie. Can't feel their heart. They don't have God. And they don't realize they're living in delusions. Delusional people capable of anything. Now do you see what's wrong with the world? And without the truth that God gave us to remember when He gave us a mind to think with, you can't find Him. You can't find reality. You can't find your heart. And without finding your heart, you can't feel it. For 27 years, I lived in my mind, in the dark, with so many people in this world. I had to let go of the belief of a devil in order to find him, and I wasn't even looking for him. I'm thankful that I was not given that choice, because I'm seeing so many people in this world ignore the proof that's right in front of them. These 3 videos are undeniable proof. And the sad part is, now they are all considered to know the truth. You don't have to believe it for God to consider you know it. And so many people in this world, if they were to pass away right now, would not see a light. And I know this because I saw it myself. Not the light. I saw the darkness that's waiting for anyone that doesn't believe. Because it was during the 27 years that I had heard God's truth, but I didn't currently believe it. Or I did not believe it at the time. And I saw darkness. It's not a place I will ever want to go back to again. I've also seen that people who haven't heard the truth have been forgiven and go home. So whether you choose to believe these videos or not, that's up to you. However, now you know, and you will not be forgiven. So you will not go home if you choose to believe anyone else. It's up to you. But I have sacrificed more than you would ever know. There have been sacrifices of lives you'll never know. Some of them very dear to me. But I have to be honest. I didn't do it for any of you. I did it for one person. And that is a person that I cannot understand why she would not come back to me. When we never wanted to be separated in the first place. Unless people are still controlling her, manipulating, and lying to her. Because when I told God, when I found him, I had already said the phrase, God, I would do anything for an eternity with her. For God told me I had to save all of his children to save her. With my dying breath, that's what I'll do. But I want everyone to think about this, because one of the things our Father said was share all you have with those around you, keeping nothing for yourself. Which is why I have nothing. But that also includes knowledge. So you're going to keep this video to yourself, the knowledge of it, or you're going to share it with those around you, like our Father said. So many people keeping the knowledge that I've been sharing with them to themselves. One reason why it's taken me 5 years of suffering. It's one reason why the soul of my wife is not saved yet. That's one reason why I'm still in pain. I have been hanging on a cross for 5 years, begging people to cut me down. All of my pleas ignored. Some laughed at. I've always said Jesus was a brother to me because we serve the same Father. His suffering lasted 3 days and was physical. Mine has lasted 5 years. And there's nothing I can do to kill them.